New in Design for Assembly 9.4 is the ability to conduct an environmental assessment of your product. This is the motor sample file that comes with the software, and I'm going to use that as an example to show you how we would go about completing what we would refer to as a DFE study on your product. On the questions panel on the right-hand side here where my mouse is, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to pick Questions Panel View, and I'm going to choose DFE. And you're going to notice a couple of things happen. One is the end-of-life data is presented to me here at the high level. And what was the results box in the lower left-hand corner has become the environmental results box, where we can see the percentages of preferred, non-preferred, and avoid materials by weight in the product, and the percentages of end-of-life disposition of the parts in the product. So here at the high level, we tell the software what it is we want to do with the product at the end of the life. Are we going to disassemble it so that we can get at some of the parts to reuse them? And then with the rest fraction, are we going to recycle, landfill, or incinerate it? And then what are we going to do with the shredding residue from the disposal of the parts of the product? I can uncheck this if disassembly isn't required, and I can choose one of the disposition choices here for what we're going to do with the product at the end of its life. We're going to assume we need to disassemble this product. And then for each of the parts in the product, we need to go to them and we need to tell the software what the materials are that particular part is made of and what we're going to do with that part at the end of its life. So I can choose, as I take the motor out here, to reuse it, recycle it, incinerate it, landfill, or make it part of the rest fraction. So if I'm going to recycle this piece, I need to then tell it what the materials are. Now the weight of the part has come over from the manufacturing data that was input in to the DFA side of the analysis. So if I specified the part weight, it will transfer over here. If not, I have to specify that here. If you bring in a part from DFM, and I'll show you this at the end of the example, the weight and the material of the part come from the DFM software, so the environmental assessment is almost carried out simultaneously with the actual DFA portion of the analysis. Here now I click this materials button to bring up this little worksheet where I can describe the materials that are used to make this part. Well, this motor base is just machined from aluminum, so I can check this button here, press this button here to select a material. And this is actually the material selections from the material library in DFM concurrent costing. And so if I open up the aluminum alloys category and I pick the generic aluminum alloy here and say OK, it puts that on this list for me and tells me that that's a preferred material. That data is coming from the material library. If I say OK at this point, what we see is that motor gets its little icon colored in green to tell me that that material is actually preferred, and 100% of the weight of that piece is actually preferred in this case. And now I would carry on down the rest of the list, selecting materials from the material database for each of the portions of the product. So this phosphor bronze, silicon bronze part here that we want to make this from, we'll say OK, and those are again preferred. Now, as I click up at the top here, you can see the software is starting to add up the total weights and the total percentages of the parts that are on the tree. Now what I've done is, in order to keep this moving forward, I've gone ahead and actually completed the DFE study of the motor on this tab that I've added to this tree. And so you can see here for each of the parts on the tree, we've gone ahead and specified the material types that they're made from. Now the motor itself you'll see is red. And if I click on the materials button here, what we've done is we've used this add and delete rows here to put in rows where we can select individual materials and use those to build up the total weight of this particular, in this case it happens to be an excluded subassembly in the Design for Assembly analysis. So things like motors are made up of more than one material, and so we can see here the types of material that are in this, their category types, and whether they're preferred or non-preferred, or whether we should avoid them altogether. So the way I would go about adding a row to this is I would say insert row. It puts it down here at the bottom. I could type in a name. I could put in a weight, and then I could choose whether it was a ferrous, non-ferrous, or other material, and then whether it was preferred, not preferred, or avoid. And I could use then the software to add up the total weight of the piece. To delete a row, you just select the delete row icon and confirm the deletion of it. So we've gone through and completed that assessment for each of the parts in this product, and what we can see up here at the top are the totals. So 95% of the materials are preferred, 3.8% of the product's weight in materials are non-preferred, and 1.3% are avoid. And if we go to the reports menu, there's an environmental summary report that's available to us. And if I select this motor DFE report, we can see what this looks like for this particular example. So we can see the highlights here of the percentages of weight that are going to be reused, recycled, landfilled, and incinerated. And then what are the materials that are in the product that should be avoided, not preferred, what are the items that are going to be removed for disassembly. And we can collect and use that data to help us with other decisions, or decisions other than cost at the early stages of the design. Now, I had said earlier, if you bring in a DFM item, that information comes along with it. So let me just add a DFM part to the tree just so you can see, and I'll choose this cylinder example. You'll see it gets added to the tree here for me. And the environmental data has already been answered because the material type is known. It happens to be made from generic stainless from the DFM analysis that we conducted to arrive at the cost of the part. So if we have DFM analyses for the parts that we're adding to our product, then the environmental assessment is almost, in a sense, being done as we go through. We don't have to build up the list of the materials. We can simply go through and tell the software what it is we want to do with that part at the end of life of the product. We can use the reports then. We could go through and do the same analysis on the redesign of the motor with the reduced part count and the different manufacturing process and material combinations that are used to produce those parts. And we could then use those reports of the environmental summaries to show that, hey, design A is 95% recyclable, design B is only 60% recyclable. So maybe there's reasons other than cost that we want to go down one of these paths. And that's a brief overview of how to use the environmental assessment of your product in the Design for Assembly software.